So hey everybody, good evening and welcome. So this is basically just me inviting you into my own practice on a Thursday night. It's just whatever it is that I feel like doing. So tonight I'm kind of feeling a little bit lower energy, but I'm also feeling a little bit like doing some fluid movement. So we're gonna do kind of a slower flow with a lot of hippie, hip openery, fluid movement kind of poses. It's a lot like what I do in general anyway. I like to move that way. I've got some yoga blocks over here. I think those are really useful. We're gonna do some lungey things tonight, and if you're like me and you've got shorter arms, the blocks are really helpful. So if you have some yoga blocks, grab those. At the very end, we'll do a nice long shavasana with a little bit of a potential for a heart opener or some leg support. So if you have some pillows and blankets, you want to grab those and just put them off to the side. Like I've got my goodies over here, so they're ready for me at the end. During the practice, you won't really need any props unless you want to use some blocks. I always like to have a bottle of water nearby, mostly because I talk to you guys the whole time I'm practicing and that makes my mouth dry. So every now and then I might need a little drink. And I also have something it's a little warm today, so I've got this little scarf that I can use to pat myself down in the event things get a little sweaty and I'm getting slippery. Although what's great about this mat is that the sweatier I get, the stickier it is. So that works out okay. Now, done this little preamble, we're gonna start in a seated position. You can start any way that feels good to you. I am just sitting on the floor, but if it feels better to you to sit cross-legged on a pillow or on a blanket, you can put that underneath your hips. You can even sit up on a yoga block. And I'm doing a really sort of simple, just cross-legged thing here with my feet, so that I have, I walked outside on the patio and I've got potting soil on my feet. Hold on, okay, now we can. I was doing some potting out there. It still hasn't gone all the way in the rain. In any case, now I'm set. So I'm just gonna kind of get myself settled in so that I'm feeling a little bit tall, and my spine is just kind of in a neutral way. I'm not holding myself up. I'm just letting myself relax for a moment. And then just come into your breath. So no matter what happens tonight, if some of the flowy stuff that I get into isn't right for you and you want to do something a little different, you can certainly do that. I'm not at your house. You can do whatever you want. But what we're going to keep, no matter what happens, is the breath, right? So the breath is the one thing that's going to be the same for, we're going to all breathe. That's the one thing we're all going to do. So start with just noticing your breath. And just sometimes by just noticing it, it'll automatically start to deepen a bit. So you can let it drop in a little deeper and come home to your body. I just noticed like a kind of tension along my shoulder I hadn't noticed before. So just notice where your body is landing right now. As these deeper breaths kind of come and go. My head in a bunch of projects today, so I've got little threads of things kind of hanging onto my brain. So I'm just gonna snip those little threads for now. Let myself get a little more present. Now, one way to work with the breath during asana practice is to use a breath practice called Ujjayi. And Ujjayi is a technique of breathing. So it is not a natural or normal is not the word I want to look for, but it's not an automatic breathing pattern. So it involves you breathing in and out through your nose and creating just a little bit of a constriction through the vocal cords so that you can hear the breath. And the breath has a kind of oceanic it's almost like the sound that when you put a seashell up against your ear, that sound of the ocean in the background of the seashell. It doesn't sound super loud. It's not meant to be like Darth Vader, and you're not really supposed to bear down on this breath like a rhinoceros. You just want to let it kind of flow in and out through your throat, but it is a technique. So you'll have to think about it to do it. And the cool part of that is that it sort of roots you in the breath while you practice. So if you can add that element to your practice, great. So try a few rounds of that for now. Fold ourselves forward. Now you can keep that breath pattern going, and then we're going to roll to the side, round through the back, roll to the side, and then fold yourself forward. So here the heart lifts, and it's almost like a little baby cobra. When we get over here, it's all kind of side bend. When you get back here, it's almost a cat shape. Over here, another bit of a side bend, and then that sort of baby cobra. We're going to do that a couple more rounds. Now when you get to the top, pause there. Switch which leg is in front if you can, and then roll the other direction. Just kind of go forward and then over to the opposite side first. We'll do a couple more of those. When you get back to the front, we're going to pause right there. Draw the shoulders back and forth a few times. And then we're going to come up and kind of come to an all-fours position to start with. We're actually going to wind up in more of a child's posy kind of shape. But let's start on all fours and just get your knees in a position that feel like they're about hips distance apart. And then we're going to kind of go back towards child's pose and kind of do these little Sufi rolls again, but this time moving around in a circle with the arms, holding our body weight a little bit. One more, go in the direction that you started in. Get back towards this child's posy pause there, and then come over the opposite direction. One more of those. Now, if you like, you can keep your knees right there. I'm going to widen mine out, bring my toes in, and let myself fall into a child's pose where my chest and my forehead touch the floor. Now you can bring your arms around the back if that's better for you. Generally for me it's better up front, a little less weight on my head. It doesn't smash my nose into the floor quite as much. So just pausing here, you can wobble back and forth. Just releasing the child's pose a little bit through the hips and the knees. You guys hear me when I talk into the floor? Now we're going to add a little twist to this. So we're going to thread an arm underneath. This hand could go over your back. You can shift the weight forward or a little bit more backward. This hand for me, I either like to reach it up over my head, or I like to use it to sort of press in a little bit and get my shoulder a little bit more of a stretch. And this is what I'm liking tonight. So try out what you think is best for you. Taking one more breath here. Oh, it's feeling kind of good tonight, y'all. All right, we're gonna come all the way out of this. So I'm gonna take that arm out. I'm gonna bring my knees in. Take this leg up on the left side. Whoops, hold on, there's a plant. Left side up. And if you wanted to, you could grab with that right leg. I'm just gonna extend, or right hand, I'm gonna extend out into spinal balance instead. So you can hold your foot and do a scorpion, or stretch out and do the spinal balance. Now, lift a bit if you can through your navel. And stretch one more time, or hold and see if that thigh will go up any higher. And then put your hand down and bring your leg forward. So now we're in a low lunge. And this is where, for me, the blocks are helpful. So I'm going to put my torso sort of over the top of my thigh here. And then we're going to lean forward into this until it feels like, yep, that's enough. And then come back into this little half Hanuman pose. So forward into a low lunge, and back into this little half Hanuman, and forward into the low lunge, and one more time back into this half Hanuman. Now pause here, bring both hands, or maybe both blocks, all the way to the diagonal. We're going to ease this leg a little bit forward if it's willing to go. And we're going to see, can I come down to my elbows on the blocks or even on the floor? You might need more of a bend in the knee. We'll see if we can kind of fall a little bit into the stretch on the diagonal. So 2 more breaths. Now, come back to the center with your hands. I'm going to put my blocks back over here, and then I'm going to take that leg up and rinse it out. And then I'm pausing back in that wide-kneed child's pose that I was doing right before that whole sequence. And notice how it went. So does your left hip and your right hip feel a little different than the other? Is there a different sense to the breath in the body? So we're going to do the other side. So we're going to take the left arm, thread it under. And again, you can choose the sort of amount of back and forth or twistiness that feels good to you. Deep breaths there, these 2 more. All right, so we're going to set ourselves back up, starting kind of in that all fours position. Again, that right leg is going to come out this time. Left arm could come out like this. You could reach back and grab that foot. That's up to you. Drop up through the waist a bit. Stretch out. If you're holding your foot, you're gonna be in more of a back bend, so don't worry as much, just hug in through the sides of your waist. One more big breath, lift a little higher if it's available. Let go with your hand. Bring that leg all the way forward, and we'll come into the lunge on this side. And again, adjust so that it feels like the right amount of lunge. Moving forward into the lunge, and bowing over that half Hanumanasana pose. Just feeling your way in here, yogis. One more time. And take an extra breath right there. And then again, I'm going to bring my blocks over here to the diagonal. And I might move this leg, I might bend this knee, I'm gonna bring the elbows to the blocks and start there and see how that feels. Feels okay. I think I can go a little lower. See where that feels. That feels nice and spicy. Okay, move my leg a little bit further up. Now it's perfectly spicy, just right. So you could take your elbows to the floor if that's right for you. You can bend this knee, okay? I kind of enjoy this little movement back and forth in the foot. As I'm hanging out with the stretch, that's a little less spicy, and that's a little more spicy. Breathe in. Yogis, we're going to take one more breath. And we're going to kind of ease our way back up here. Back to that child's pose one more time. So, we might give that guy a little shake. And then feel where it lands you. And again, notice, is there a difference between this child's pose versus the last one versus the first one? Does the body feel different in the shape? Now, we're going to reach the arms out quite far, and then we're going to come all the way forward. So I'm going to bring my knees in. We're going to come all the way forward. You can stay on the elbows or go for more of a plank. We're going to all eventually wind up on the belly, doing some cobra work, okay? So hands about level with the chest or the shoulder. Inhale, lift into a cobra. And again, I'm not pushing with my arms. I'm lifting with my back muscles and then using my arms to help support me. And that's the way you want to do cobra in general, because then you're going to get stronger that way. And I think that feels like a good idea. Slide your hands back, especially with your back getting stronger. Reach through the legs, root nicely, lift. Draw the elbows back. You can move your head as you like. And then come on back down. One more time, bringing the hands back a little further if you can. Reach through the legs, lift into a cobra. And then slide your arms up front. You can come to a sphinx. You can be propped up a little bit higher. You can come down a little lower. So we're just pausing here. We're gonna tuck the toes under and lengthen through that right hip. Lengthen through that left hip. Bend the knees. See what happens. Does your hip buckle? Or can you press the top and front of your hip down into the floor while you bring the heels towards your hips? Some of us will find that we buckle right here. That is just tight hip flexors, y'all. And some other things as well. All right, so we're gonna let the legs come back down. We're gonna come back down and we're gonna bring ourselves back And this time we're gonna go all the way to downward dog. So you can come back through child's pose and into your downward dog. You can go straight up to a plank and come into downward dog. So that is between you and your pose. Now once you get here, we're gonna pause for a few minutes and use this first dog to move a lot. So play with your shoulders a little bit. Where does it feel like your shoulder blades feel the most connected to your back? Walk your feet up and down. Oh. Feel your calf muscles. Move your hips a little. Ooh. We're going to walk the hands back to the feet. And I'm going to do it one little hand movement at a time. So just one hand length. And I'm here bending my knees, one more hand length. Okay, there's going to be a point where all my weight's going to be in my legs. When I get there, I'll take my hands off the floor. I'm not there yet. Bend the knees. One more. Ooh, I'm getting pretty close. And then bend my knees. One more. That's going to shift all my weight into my legs. So now I'm going to pause here. Now, heel toe the feet out wide enough that it feels like a nice sort of loose place. And then let yourself sway a little side to side. I like to let my arms get really drapey here. And go the other direction. Now we're going to come up halfway and pause. Now I've got my hands on my shins. Some people can get a flat back and put their fingertips on the floor. So it's just whatever your legs will give you. Bend your knees, let yourself hang. And then we're going to come all the way up to standing. Now, you can bring your legs in so that it feels a little bit more like your feet are right under your hips. We've got a little mountain pose here. And I'm at the back of my mat, and theoretically so are you. You might be at the top of your mat, in which case you'll just hang out. If you're at the back of your mat, we're going to take a little journey to the top of the mat. We're going to try to do that almost like imagine, have you ever walked on the beach or walked like through a pool of water? It was maybe up to your knees or up to your shins. We're going to try to imagine that resistance walking through, so that as we walk the legs forward, we're moving as if we're moving through that resistance of the water. So we're kind of rolling through this resistance. Now when you feel yourself get to the top edge of your mat with your toes, then you're going to stop. I think I'm pretty close. There's the top edge. All right. Now find your mountain pose in such a way that it feels like you're not sticking out your chest too far, okay? So I've got a nice kind of neutral position. Draw the navel up and in a little bit. A little soft around your knees. We're going to lift the shoulders up and let them fall down. Lift them up and let them fall down. One more time. Lift them up, let them fall down. Wiggle your feet out so that they're a little wider than your hips. We're going to take a big breath, reach up. Exhale, come down into a squat. However deep a squat you can get into. I'm going to pause here for a couple breaths. Exhale and put your hands on the floor. Now we're going to step back with the left foot into a lunge and kind of keeping up on the toes a bit. We'll take a little twist here. And if you want to let your hip drop, you can, or you can kind of hold that left hip level and really feel it. So it's like, how much twist do you want? Reaching back. Good, putting both hands on the floor. Now we're going to step this guy back into down dog. And pause here for your down dog. Nice big breath. We're going to come forward into a plank. You can lower down through the vinyasa in whatever way makes sense to you. And then coming back to your down dog. we're gonna take that left leg up and make a nice big exhale and hug it in. And inhale, reach it back. And then come in almost to a plank, hold steady right there. And then bring your leg to the diagonal here, over outside of your left hand. We're gonna step the right one up to the diagonal, beside the right hand. Come back to our squat. Come to a forward bend. Come up halfway, heel to the feet in. And then come in all the way up to standing. Give it a big stretch. And then coming back to this mountain pose. Oh, we're gonna do that again. Shoulders up, and drop them. Shoulders up, drop them. One more. Shoulders up, drop them. Heel toe the feet out. Nice big breath. Exhale, squat. Hold and steady right there as best you can squat. Last one. Hands to the mat. We're going to step back with the right leg, taking our lunge, adding the twist when you get your spacing right. Nice big breath. Both hands to the floor, stepping it back to down dog. Hold in here, 2 more breaths. Inhale into your plank, and lower in through the vinyasa of your choice. Coming back to down dog. So now the right leg is the one that's going to go up. Exhale, bring it in. Inhale, stretch it back. Come in almost to that plank, knee up. Good, bring it forward to the diagonal. Pause. Bring your left foot up to the diagonal. Pause, come back to that deep squat. One more breath. And then come into our forward bend. You can heel toe your feet back. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Come all the way up to standing. Big stretch. Mountain pose. Doesn't it feel good? So again, we're going to take the shoulders up. Drop them. Shoulders up. Drop them. Shoulders up. Drop them. Heel toe your feet out. Nice big stretch. Exhale. Come into a squat. One more breath. All right, we're stepping back with that left foot into the lunge. When you get where you think you've got the right space, add your twist. Come on back. Take it to down dog. One more breath there. Coming into your plank, big breath. And then lower down, your choice of methodology. Coming back to down dog. Taking our left leg up. Hook that over your back a bit. Sink into the right heel if you can. You can spin your left foot. We're going to step this foot forward again at the diagonal, but we're not done here. Bring the left foot around for warrior 2, and we'll come up. And then you just adjust the spacing so that it's the right kind of warrior 2 for you. Taking yourself back, and over, and back, and over. One more, back, and over. We're going to bring this right leg up to the diagonal. That was not very graceful, but it worked. Coming into the squat. Last breath here. And then we're going to come to forward bend. Heel toe to the feet as you come to that halfway mark. Oh. All the way to standing. Nice big stretch. Oh. Mountain pose. I love the moment when we've done one side but we haven't done the other yet. Good. Shoulders lift and fall. Shoulders lift, oh, and fall. Shoulders lift, oh, and fall. Heel toe the legs. Nice big stretch. Exhale into your squat. 2 more breaths. We're gonna hold. We're gonna take this right leg, step it back in the twist, or in the lunge rather. And then when you've got it where you want it, add your twist. Nice big stretch. Good, hands to the mat, stepping it back to your down dog. Oh, that feels good. Take 1 more breath. Coming into your plank. And then choosing whether you modify or fold, lower through the Vinyasa. Coming back to down dog. Take that right leg up, hook it over, give that foot some little spins. I'm pressing into my left heel. Hook it in, bring it to the diagonal. And again, we're gonna come to that diagonal with both legs. Oh, this might be easier on a round yoga mat, I'll admit that. You might have to do some little finagling on your mat. And then we'll come through this reverse warrior side angle. Come back, step our left foot up to the diagonal, come into our squat. Last breath here. And we're going to fold forward. Heel toe it in when you come up to that halfway mark. Come all the way to standing. Nice big stretch. Woo. Coming back to mountain pose. Finding that pose again. Now yogis, we're going to lift the shoulders up and let them fall. Lift the shoulders up, let them fall. Is that getting easier? Sure is for me. Let them fall. Now we're going to bring all the weight into the right leg. We're going to bring the left leg into a tree. So we're going to find our balance here, hopefully, or we may not. So you can pick your foot up and bring it over the knee or put it under the knee. Just be mindful of the knee. Ooh, arms can be up high or down low. You got a piece of furniture nearby, you want to use that, or a wall. Sure. Just know that it's okay to be out of balance if that's what's happening. Take 1 more breath. Then we're going to bring that foot down. We come into that wide squat. Again, maybe this is your squat tonight. Maybe it's a little lower. A lot of people can get lower than me. And then we're going to take this left foot, bring it back, step into our lunge. Now this time we're going to bring this left knee to the ground again. And we're going to add on to this twist potentially, okay? So I'm going to leave my hand on the floor, except I'm going to use a block to give myself a little bit more height. I'm going to bring my hip forward as much as I think it's okay to do. And then I'm going to let myself twist and drop this leg open. Some people can reach back and grab that foot, so that's an option if you want to use it. Breathe in deep here. And we're going to bring this back together. I'm going to set my block off to the side, and we're going to take this whole thing back to downward dog. So you can do that by lifting this leg first and then stepping this guy back, or a little more supported version, bring this leg back first, and then come to your downward dog. Okay, and then feel that pose transition there. Ooh, we're going to come back to this left leg, bringing it up, bringing it into the belly, curling up around it. Bring it back, bring it towards this upper arm. Maybe you can even squeeze it. Beautiful, bring it to the diagonal. And again, we're going to bring this guy down to the floor, and you might have to shimmy around a little bit to find your warrior two position. And then come on up. Adjust when you get there. So it feels okay in your groins and your hips. And then we'll move through these two shapes. Side angle and reverse warrior. Reverse warrior gives us that little stretch. Side angle gives us this big stretch. Straighten out your leg now, come back one more time. And then we'll come into a triangle, leaving this leg straight. Now for me, it helps to come in a little tighter with the feet. And I'm gonna use a block tonight. Put it right there. Plant my hand on it, lift up off that shoulder and lengthen. And then just feel that pose and wherever it's landing. One more breath here. Now I'm going to bend this knee, heel toe this guy in a bit. You can keep that block if you want. Hand to the floor, lift that right leg up. I'm going to come into, if I can, a half moon balance. Nice big lift. Beautiful. Now we're going to take this right leg down to the diagonal. Come back to our squat. Come to a forward bend. Halfway, let you heel toe your feet in. Then come all the way to standing. Give it a stretch. Come back to your mountain pose. Feel it might be a little off center now. So we're going to take a moment, lift the shoulders up, let them fall. It's getting way easier. Lift them up, let them fall. One more time, lift them up, let them fall. Now we're shifting the weight into the left leg and bringing this right leg up into our tree. So we can do that whole thing again on the other side. One more breath here. Okay, we're going to bring it out to a wide stance. We're going to come back to our squat. Whatever the right amount of squatting is for you. It might get a little deeper as time goes on. One more breath here. So we're going to step the right leg back. So take the pressure away. Right leg goes back. And again, we're going to bring that knee to the ground so we can come to this twisting lunge. Again, I'm going to add a block because I have short arms and I find it helpful. And then I'm going to let this drop open as I turn, okay, into this lunge. Feel out how the hip sockets are going along with this idea. Some people may want to hold that foot back there. Couple more breaths. Yogis. All right, we're coming out of here. Again, we're going to come to downward dog. So what you may wind up doing is the more easy way. I don't know if that's easy, just a little less intense maybe. Or you can do it the way that's a little more challenging. We're all going to wind up in the same place. Downward facing dog. Ooh, 2 more breaths here. And then we're coming through the vinyasa, so your choice of intensity on that one. And then coming back to downward dog. again, this right leg is coming up. Oh. So we're gonna bring it in, stretch it back, bring it over to this upper arm, see if you can hold that plank, and then step that foot off to that diagonal. You might wiggle it in a little if your mat's not as wide. And then we're coming into warrior two. Oh. Hopefully. Taking a moment, coming back to reverse warrior, and over into side angle. Oh. And back. Oh. And over. Oh. And back. And over. Oh. Whoop. One more time back. And this is where we're going to come into triangle. So I'm going to get myself there with a little heel toe and a little block action. And you might choose a different way of coming in. Nice deep breaths, yogis. One more. All right, we're gonna bend this knee. Maybe use the block, maybe just use the floor. I'm gonna come in, whee, into a half moon balance. Oh, I think you're gonna fall and crush your furniture. Definitely catch yourself. Nice and big. Oh. And then we're gonna bring this leg to the diagonal. Come back to our squat. 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to fold forward. Give it a little rinse. And we're going to come up halfway. Heel toe the feet in. And then come all the way to standing. Give it a nice big stretch. Find your mountain pose. We're going to pause here for a bit. One more time though. Bring the shoulders up, let them fall. Bring the shoulders up, let them fall. Bring the shoulders up, let them fall, and then just pause and breathe. Now yogis, we're going to pick up this left foot and we're going to step it back so that we come to a wide angle. Now you can turn the toes in for this one or leave them turned more out. We're going to fold forward into this wide angle and pause here for a moment. And again, this is just a chance to sort of play with the pose. You can lift up and come back. Lift up and come back. We're going to turn this into a little squat sequence in a second, but for now, can you find your way just into a wide angle, sort of folding forward? If your hamstrings are really tight, bend your knees. See if that's a little bit better. If it feels okay to keep your legs all the way straight, you can do that. Two more breaths. Now we're going to pause for a moment, bend the knees a notch, spin the feet in, and you're going to wander over to one side and just make sure it doesn't feel too wide or too narrow, okay? So go back and forth. If you need a little wider space or a little less space, do that. Now, when you come over to the side, you can pick your hands up off the floor if you're feeling really supported, or you can keep your hands on the ground if it feels too spicy. You can pick this foot all the way up if you want, and your hips can go as low as they make sense to go. I've seen people practically put their hip on the ground, okay? I stay a little higher because my knees are older. So you're gonna feel this out for your knees. And we're just gonna go back and forth into these little half squats. Ooh. Now we're gonna wind up turning this left side into a pigeon pose. And if you need to do a pigeon on your back, you can switch it up. I'm gonna take a couple blocks with me over that way, and I'm gonna take a pillow Okay, maybe I'll take a lot of props, but a pillow for sure. Okay, so I'm putting that stuff over here on the left side, and then I'm gonna kind of spin myself around, and like I'm gonna step back into down dog, except all I'm gonna do is put my knee on the ground so that I can slide back into my pigeon. Now, I know that I like a little support under my hips, so I'm gonna put my pillow there, and then I'm gonna keep on sliding until I'm in position that feels like a good position for me, okay? Oh. Now you're gonna work this out for you. And some people will come all the way to the ground, and some of us will stay a little bit more upright, and some of us might flip all the way upside down. Oh. We're going to stay with this pose for about another minute. Take a nice deep breaths. Okay, we got a big breath. We got a big deep sigh. Now, I'm gonna lean into this left hip, bring this right leg around. Oh, okay. Now, you can come back to the seated pose like we did at the beginning, or you can have this knee up. We're gonna do a twist, okay? So sitting, lifting tall, rotating the body toward that right side, and then pause and sort of snuggle your sit bones in. You can even lean back a little and lift up your breastbone. See if there's a little more twist, and then pause and breathe. Take nice deep breaths. We're going to stay for about 30 more seconds here. You can turn your head if you want the other direction. That always feels nice to me. Take a really big breath. Let go with a really big. We're gonna unwind everything we just did. We're gonna lean back, unpretzel the legs, and give everything a little bit of a shimmy. Ooh, and just let the spine kind of come back to neutral before we do this other side. Now the fun part is that we're gonna get back into that little half squat. So, or maybe you're not, but I am. So we're gonna try this out and see how it goes. So I'm just gonna move all my props over to this other side, because I know that's where I'm gonna want them to be. And then I'm gonna come back up to my knees, take myself to downward dog. Oh. Take a moment with that dog to really feel the two sides. You might even throw in a vinyasa if you're like, but Candy, I need one more vinyasa. I'm not gonna stop you yogis. And then we're gonna come back to this wide angle forward bend when you get back into position to do so. Oh, Oh, I love this pose. It's always in my top 10 of favorite things to do. Some days it's number 1. So again, I'm gonna find my little half squat position and just wander back and forth. I'm gonna keep it kind of light because it's feeling nicer to be a little more gentle at this point because I've done a lot of squats tonight. So just being kind and sweet and soft. You might at this point feel like, ooh, you finally got the space to go deeper, right? So then I'm gonna wander this around, pick up this right leg, bring it into my pigeon shape, and then slide myself back into it. So when you're ready, you join me here. Or in your version of the pigeon, which could be laying on your back, because that's kind of awesome, frankly. And then just breathe and relax a little bit into it. We're gonna stay a while. Not a long while, but a little while. This is gonna be too much information, but once a week I get a salad delivered by a local farmer. So they have their locally grown salad greens, and as the summer, it's mostly been salad greens and grains at this point, but I think as the summer progresses it'll be even more vegetables. But in any case, salads make me burpy. And so I apologize for that tonight. I also apologize for the information. That is way too much information. So we're gonna stay for a wee bit longer, about a little bit more than 30 more seconds or so. I will say that I really love getting my weekly salad delivery. It is, I've never been able to, as a single person, eat an entire farmer's box, but I like supporting local farmers. This is the perfect solution. Great way to support a local farm and simultaneously get like an amount of food that I can actually consume. So we're going to take a big deep breath and let go with a big deep. And you're going to lean into your right hip, and we're bringing that left leg around. And again, you can decide how to stack it up. I'm going to sit cross-legged like I did at the very beginning, just so I come back to a shape I've been in, so I can feel the difference. Because this feels a lot looser than it did at the very beginning. And then I'm twisting towards the left this time. And then I like to, again, kind of press my sit bones down, get a little taller. You might even lean back to do that. It helps. Then reestablish your height and find like kind of this positioning in the shoulders that feels just right to you. You can look over that back shoulder. I'm going to do that for a while and then change it up. Just breathe. About 30 more seconds here. Turn my head the other way. Nice deep breaths. I like still, I'm kind of coming home to that ujjayi. Just one more time if you lost track of it. Take a nice big inhale. And then we're gonna unwind everything. Unwind everything. Give yourself a moment just to kind of jiggle everything out. Yogis? Felt pretty good. I hope it felt good for you too. We're not done yet. We still got a few minutes. But we're going to do some more things here on the floor. Now, we've done a lot of kind of back bendy oriented things with the lunges and the reverse warrior and the cobras and that sort of thing. And we've done things that are a little more kind of forward bendy oriented with the squatting. That kind of gets us in this forward bendy shape. We are gonna do a forward bend and some side bends because we haven't done as much of that. So we are gonna do some side bendy things, and then we'll cap it off with a forward bend. So you have a couple of options. I'm gonna turn this way because I think it's easier for me to orient this whole thing. Now you can do a wider leg, okay? We're gonna bend one knee, so I'm gonna have the left leg straight and the right knee bent. Or you can have the legs closer together, okay, in the same orientation. I'm gonna go for the wider one because I think it's a little easier on me for side bending purposes. We are gonna forward bend, and you can change it up when you get to that point. So for now, I'm gonna let my elbow rest on this left thigh. Now, if your elbow doesn't get all the way to your left thigh, just put your left hand on the floor or your left hand on your shin. That'll work. Be careful of your knee, okay? You don't want to push pressure into like hyperextending at your knee. So be mindful of that. And then we're gonna take this left arm, the right arm, and bring it all the way over to the left. And so this is a variation on the Janu Shirsasana. This Janu is your knee, Shirsa is your head, so your head's moving toward your knee. And this is a variation on that. It's like the gate pose and the head to knee pose had a baby. So it's kind of that sort of a shape. And if you press your hip down over there on the right, sometimes that feels nice. If you take this arm and kind of wrap the pinky finger down and stretch a little bit more, you can get into your lats a little bit more through your back. Take one more big breath. Okay, we're gonna bring the arm back and lift ourselves up. Oh. Feel where that left your neck. Oh. Bring this leg around and this leg around. Oh. Hike your shoulders up. Oh. Drop them a couple times. Oh. Feels good, doesn't it? The beginning, my shoulders felt a little tighter. Now they feel super loose. All right, so we're going back to this wide angle shape. We're gonna bend this other knee. Again, you can add any support or props that you like. Be mindful of this knee. Okay, so we're going out, up and over with the left arm toward the right. Oh, and you just like feel the different positions. So if I roll myself this way, where I bring the right side of my rib cage forward, I feel that in a different place than if I roll myself that way and take my right rib cage back, okay? There's no wrong answer, unless it hurts, then that's the wrong answer. But for me, it's just a spectrum of flavor. If I roll this arm bone down, that gets a different place where my lats attach up here, and it gives me a little bit more leverage to stretch those lats out, which feels really nice. Latissimus dorsi muscles there in the back. Oh, they go all the way to the waist with the connective tissue there. All right, we got 2 more big breaths here. One more. We're gonna come all the way up, big inhale. All right, unwind that. Oh, let your spine adjust. Oh, let your head and neck adjust. So one of the things I like about side bends and twists is when I come out of them and I've had enough time for my body to adjust, there's this overall sense of just well-being that I experience. And the Yoga Sutras tells us that yoga poses should be steady and they should have what's called sukham. So it's asanam, shtiram, sukham is the actual words. Asanam are the poses or the positions we put our body in. Shtiram is the root word for strength, stability, those words, so it's the root of that. And sukham is the root word for succor, which is like to nourish, and sugar, which is sweetness, right? And so the poses should have a sense of nourishing or bringing well-being or bringing a pleasant sensation to the body. That's what the oldest document that's really specifically about a yoga practice suggests to us. So I think that's really interesting, right? And so I'm always on the look, like I'm always watching as my practice unfolds. Do I feel steady? And do I have a sense of well-being when I come out of the poses? And if the answer is no, then I want to constantly tweak the way that I practice, right? I don't want to feel depleted or, I like that feeling of having worked my body and I feel pleasantly tired, but I don't want to feel depleted, right? We want to have a sense of well-being. So you just notice for your practice. Now, I'm going to stick with this shape. You could come back to this shape or come to this shape, or you could come to this shape with your legs. So either the legs straight out in front of you, closer together, the legs straight out in a V, or the feet touching, knees open, in what's usually referred to as bound angle pose, or butterfly pose, or cobbler's pose, depending on who is translating. The technical translation is bound angle pose for that. This pose is called Upavista Konasana, and Kona is an angle, so anytime you see the word Kona in a yoga, in Sanskrit, Pada Konasana, Upavista Konasana, it means there's an angle involved. Asana is a pose, so that distinguishes it from all the other things that involve yoga. And then Upavista, it was really cool is watching how different languages have formed. A vista, think about what a vista is. It's where you look out over the horizon, right? Same root of this shape, which is that we're creating a horizon line with the legs, right on? So folding into whatever version you're doing. This is our last pose before we lay on our backs. And one of the things that is supposed to be true, I've been told is true by different yoga teachers about forward bends, is that they help calm the mind and steady the body if we're experiencing anxiety, so that they help with feelings of anxiety or feelings of pressure, right? That they help steady and calm the mind. So I'm very curious about that. Do they do that for me? And I'm not 100% sure yet, but they have a quality to them, these forward bends. Any forward bend, it works for me anyway, whether I'm standing or seated. They have a quality to them that does seem to invite quiet. Right? So check it out and see if it's true. Connect to your breath. And don't take my word for it. Go in there, find out, see if it's true for you. Take 2 more breaths where we are. And we're going to come all the way back up. And then bring the legs together or straighten the legs out depending on what you did, right? So if you had your knees bent, straighten them. If you had your legs straight, bend them. Give yourself a little movement. And then just notice how the things went. Now, what I will say is that often when I'm feeling emotional distress, child's pose is a really good pose for me. And there's a couple of qualities to it that make it a really good pose. There is a forward bending aspect to it. My back is rounded. But I really find that letting my forehead rest somewhere is very helpful, okay? So having that quality of resting my forehead seems to calm and steady my mind. Now in a forward bend, for me, that there's a lot of quiet that starts to kind of creep in a similar way. And if I add that little forehead rest, then for me it's quite often I get that sense of where they're coming from with that idea, okay? Now again, don't take my word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it. Go in there, figure it out for yourself. because we're all wired a little differently, and we all have different histories, and so we may not experience yoga poses the same way. Now, I'm going to end my pose with this pillow under my legs and this blanket that I have here under my upper back, so that I have a little bit more of a chest opening while we hang out. You might want to just lay down on your back, and if you're thinking to yourself, ooh, that child's pose sounded kind of great, you can do a child's pose. Just put enough pillows and blankets in your world that that it's soft, because we're going to stay for a while, about 6 or 7 minutes, okay? So you're going to get your final relaxation pose as propped up as you want it to be. So I'm going to use this blanket. I've got to get the wrinkles out, because the wrinkles are going to matter later. So I'm taking the time to do that real quick. And then I'm going to fold this blanket into thirds and lay it down. And I'm going to put my back on this so that most of my back is supported, and I'm going to put a little wrinkle under my head. Okay? So I'm coming around. I'm going to lay down on the blanket, and I want it to support most of my back so that my whole rib cage is supported. I leave, so here's where my bottom rib is, right here, and here's where the top of my pelvis is. And I've got the blanket about 1 inch or so under, maybe 2 inches under my bottom rib, but not all the way down to my pelvis. And for me, that's the perfect spot. And then I'm going to take this extra blanket and just give myself a little wrinkle so that my head is supported, so that my chin is level. And then I'm going to stretch my legs out over this pillow and make sure I like the way my low back feels. Okay? You might have to your tailbone a little or pull a little bit of the flesh out to the sides. If you've got a lot of junk in your trunk, that can be really helpful. Oh. And then maybe the arms are closer. I'm going to leave my arms kind of like if I just were standing up, where would my arm land? And that's where I'm going to put it, because that transfers the load of this thing I'm doing with my back into the deep muscles of my shoulders. So it's not too spicy. It's just a way to gently let my shoulders relax back into their natural habitat in the back of my shoulder socket. My arm bone releases in against the shoulder blade a little better. And it gives the shoulder blade permission to kind of let itself release a bit from the sticky tissue that might be holding it into place on my upper back. And then if you need a little eye pillow, you can cover your eyes. That can be helpful. And take the extra little moments to make sure it's just right, and then take a big breath when you feel like you've got it settled in. Let go with a big big sigh. And it might be like 3 of those, just like those shoulder things we did earlier. 3 big will allow you to relax. yourself pause for a little bit longer, yogis. You might notice that your body is breathing again, but just let it breathe in its natural way and watch the breath. Notice how many parts of the body shift with the breath. There's a difference in the quality of the inhale compared to the exhale. Take a breath so deep you can feel it all the way to your toes. Let it go with a big sigh. Let's do that one more time. Big breath. Let go with an ah. Give your fingers and toes a little wiggle. Stretch out your fingers and toes, and then I'll give them one more little wiggle, and then give your wrist and ankles a little movement. Not in a hurry to go anywhere just yet. Switch the direction if you can. Give yourself a nice big stretch. I like to do little banana shapes. And then bring your knees into your chest, and if you were using a blanket like I am, take that out from under you. And then give your back a little massage and just feel where that blanket sort of landed your shoulders and your upper back. Oh, it feels so nice. And it's possible that you could just go right from here into bed, but otherwise we're gonna roll over to our side. We're gonna bring ourselves to a seated position. And if you're still with me, I'll be right over there to you in just a second, but we can do this in our imagination. So we're gonna take a nice big breath together and a big deep sigh. And hope you have a great rest of your evening. Namaste, yogis.